Welcome to Promote, Profit, Publish. We are here today for the second part of our interview with Randy Peyser. But before we get started, I wanted to remind you guys to go over and take our Promote, Profit, Publish quiz. You can find it at www.promoteprofitpublish.quiz.com. Let me say that again, www.promoteprofitpublishquiz.com. So today we have part two of our interview with Randy Peyser. Randy gets book deals with publishers. There's a book you want to write and a book publisher and readers, and she helps you make that all happen in the same book. Sometimes we don't get that right. Literary agents receive over 1,500 manuscripts a year. Publishers about 10,000 or more a year. So if you want to get a publishing deal and more readers, the publishers and the readers and what they buy, you have to know how to make your book stand out from the start. Randy's a publishing coach who pitches books to agents and publishers after her company edits and ghost writes them through her company, One Stop Inc.
No, it's Author One Stop.
Gosh, I just can't get this right today, can I? Author One Stop Inc. So welcome, Randy.
Thank you.
Even though I botched the introduction.
Well, thank you very much.
So last time we talked a lot about traditional publishing. And this time I want to talk a little bit more about what are the really hot topics right now, how to name books, and some other things that are really important for these people. So what are the really hot topics right now that you're able to sell to publishers?
Yeah, so think about what's trending in the news right now. So Me Too is incredibly hot, and I mentioned that on the last roundabout. If you're writing fiction, werewolves are out, vampires are still in. So it really depends. One of the things that's the most important is bringing something new to a conversation that's already happening. So that's really critical to the key to a sale of any book that you're writing or would want to write. Like one of the most important things that I discover is that I love to do a positioning consultation with people right up front, because I tell people, there's the book you want to write and a book a publisher's going to buy or a reader's going to buy, and are they the same book, and what makes the same book? So for example, I was mentioning in the last podcast that publishers right now are looking for topics that are outcome driven. And I gave the example before of, acupressure for anxiety. They say people buy to either increase pleasure or reduce pain, and of the two, reducing pain is the bigger issue. So what is your target market's pain point? What is the solution you provide? And this is a critical piece of it. Is your competition, or are all the books out there, let's call them the competition, are they providing the same solution that you do? So for example, Law of Attraction became really big with, the publishing of The Secret. And then there were all these Law of Attraction knockoff books. Or, for example, Happiness was a big seller for a long while. Marcy Shimoff had her Happy for No Reason, New York Times bestseller. I had a great happiness book, and I was pitching it in New York to the publishers. And the publishers, one after another, they were saying, oh, Happiness has already been done. Marcy Shimoff owns that market. So what would be so unique that I could position that book correctly? And the one I was pitching at the time. And one of the agents said, why don't you call this a book about liberation from fear, liberating yourself from fear? Same topic, different positioning. So I started pitching it like that, and all of a sudden I'm hearing yes from all these different agents or publishers. So it's about getting the right positioning for each topic. And the way I go about that, let's say I'm doing a positioning consultation with somebody, and I just have them talk about their book. And typically one of two things happens consistently. I mean, almost every single time. All of a sudden the person is speaking and I hear something that comes out of their mouth and I go, there's your title. And they go, oh my God. And it's just something that just comes through naturally in their conversation, and they don't even hear it, but I get it because I'm looking for it. I'm intentionally listening for that while we're speaking. Another thing that happens, so like I said, those titles come in one of two ways in the correct positioning. Either I hear it directly from the person's mouth, or I get the download while they're speaking. And I want that title to be a goosebumps kind of title. It's like, oh my God, that's it. And we both really understand that that's it. So for example, Lauren Miller was one of my clients, and she had a book on stress relief, and her original title was 5 Minutes to Stress Relief. And I came up with the title, Grab and Go Stress Relief. And she loved that. And she decided she was going to do a whole brand around that. And so she had she was thinking about grab and go nutrition, whatever the grab and goes were. She, just thought, here's a whole branded series. So I sold it under that title to a publisher. However, the publisher actually changed the title back to 5 Minutes to Stress Relief. But I think they would have done better in overall sales if it had been grab and go, personally.
That brought up a great conversation we had at CEO Space, though, because I have a book coming out, and I was naming it along the lines of my brand, Promote, Profit, Publish. And you and I think we're still kind of going back and forth with that more action-oriented, solution-oriented title. So I want to bring that up about, don't get all excited about the brand until you actually have that name that's going to really work.
Well, what's interesting, too, that I've discovered over all these years, publishers do not care about your brand. You care about your brand. Publishers do not at all. So if you're naming your book after your brand and you're going for a traditional publisher, please don't be attached to it, because publishers change titles, like I would say 98% of the time. And I'll give you an example with my own book. My first book I wrote, my original title was From Crappy to Happy, a journey out of the pits and into the fruit of life. And I thought, that's witty. Well, publishers took off the from, it became Crappy to Happy. Now listen to the change in my subtitle. Small Steps to Big Happiness Now. Why? Their marketing department came up with the title because Small Steps to Big Happiness Now answered the question in the reader's minds, what's in it for me?
Yes.
So let's say, somebody walks into a bookstore, they have a gazillion titles in that store, and all they see is the spine of your book. What's on that spine? Because that's what has to grab them. So if you have an outcome-driven title, that's going to grab them.
Right. I love that. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about on here is kind of shift it from the traditional into a little bit more about marketing. You and I discussed platform building on the last one. It's essential. What can people do that is cost effective after their books come out? Because a lot of the traditional publishers do not do the marketing like they used to. So what would you recommend for authors that already, obviously they're going to sell it to the platform they've built, but how do they broaden that audience with the book marketing?
There's one new program that I'm involved with now that I absolutely love. Not only do I love it, but actually this week there's going to be an article in USA Today about it. It is going to be featured in Publishers Weekly. It has been on Forbes.com. It was on the Delta Sky magazine on the airlines a few months ago. And Penguin Random House, Simon & Schuster, HarperCollins, Macmillan, Hachette, Ballantine, and many, many other publishers are also using this consistently every single month, but it's also open to individual authors and to self-published authors. And it's a program called Bedside Reading, bedsidereading.com. And a friend of mine started it. Her name is Jane Ubel-Meyer, and we are placing books by the bedsides in 5-star luxury hotels and in boutique hotels as complimentary copies for guests, just to get out word of mouth marketing. And the program is hugely successful in terms of creating that accessibility to high net worth families, individuals, CEOs, who are celebrities, who are the people staying at the Waldorf Astoria, Shutters on the Beach, the Conrad on Wall Street, Aquilina Spa Resort and Spa in Florida, and many, many other boutique hotels and 5-star luxury hotels. And so this is a word of mouth marketing program, and that's working incredibly well. So there's a distinction I want to make between marketing and sales. So for example, in Bedside Reading, we're right up front. We tell people, we're not selling your book. This is a complimentary copy to create word of mouth. And that's what we're able to deliver. Publishers love this program. That's why so many people are using them. And nobody else in the entire world that we know of does a similar program.
Mm-hmm. No, that's great. You and I had some authors earlier. I just do want to mention, for self-published authors, you have to have a significant amount of sales. The people that we referred over to Randy were people who had made the USA Today bestseller list. So you keep that in mind when you're going over to talk to Randy about that program and you're self-published, that you need to, I mean, Jane is her name, right? There's
yeah, but truthfully, you don't have to have a track record of sales for bedside reading. What we do need, no. But the book has to be appropriate for those kinds of hotels. So we vet the book first, and then we send it to the hotel. We give them an Amazon link, and what they want to see, what we want to see, are 5-star reviews on Amazon. So that's really what we need. The book doesn't have to have a big track record of sales, but we need books that, these are the criteria. We call it recent and decent. No really like political erotica, strongly opinionated. A lot of the hotels really want fiction. They want high quality fiction and thrillers. We have some business hotels, but right now we're actually booked up through spring of 2019 with our business books. And so they're looking more for gift books, children's books. We actually have some of the hotels love the program so much, they've started children's story hours. And all of these hotels promote to their own lists, which is really, really cool. And we provide, social media images that you can keep blasting out, because this is an exclusive program. Books are vetted. So people can announce, my book has just been accepted into this program. My book is being featured at Shutters on the Beach. And then here's, actual images of it. And recently there's a new program where for bedside reading, we're taking audiobooks and ebooks.
Oh, nice.
Which is very, very cool.
Yeah.
But we've just got to see a bunch of good reviews and feel like it's a good fit. And Jane actually pairs the books with the particular hotels. She says it's like pairing a fine wine, so because she knows who likes what, who's looking for what. So that's a really, really great program. The other thing I really want to recommend to people is I like what I call captive audiences. For example, a bookstore is not so much a captive audience, but where is the real target market for your book? For example, if you're a mind, body, spirit author or a Christian author, can you get into your church to do a sermon, or, can you get in front of that particular group? For example, I wrote a book called The Power of Miracle Thinking about, how to, I speak for churches and synagogues and all kinds of sermons that I deliver for all kinds of those organizations, because I have a group of people in a room that are already going to be there. If you've got a business book, get to those local networking and business events as a speaker. You want to be in front of captive audiences for back of the room sales. That's a really good way to do it.
Yeah, back of the room sales, and also using the assessment marketing to drive other people in the room who don't go to the back of the room to your book as well. So that's the point. One of the things that I am asked over and over is about endorsements. How do you get the people who write your foreword? How do you get the people, if you don't know somebody famous, to put those endorsements, to give you those endorsements for the back of your book?
Okay, so let's separate this into two questions, one about the foreword and one about endorsements, and I'll speak about endorsements first. Okay. So when you're talking about endorsements, you're looking for a 1 to 2 sentence endorsement, really, really short. You don't want paragraphs. Write out some potential endorsements for your book that you can send to someone who's appropriate. So that's the first thing, because you know how busy you are, you know how busy your inbox is. Do you have time to be thinking of endorsements for people and reading their material? Most likely not. So when you're going to send an endorsement to somebody, give them some examples that they can, and ask them, would you be willing to endorse my book with one of these examples? Or, they can tweak it, edit it, whatever. And maybe send them the introduction, maybe send them your table of contents, and maybe one chapter. Okay. Unless somebody's actually asking for the entire book. So that's what you're going to send. But who do you send it to, and how do you get them? My secret question is that I ask is, the question is not what can I get, but what can I give?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're going after somebody, let's say they're a famous person, and like, for example, I write for magazines, so I might interview, a famous author, which I do, New York Times bestselling authors. And at the end of the interview, I'll say, I have a new book coming out. Would you be willing to provide an endorsement? Oh, yes, honey, I'd be happy to, because I've just given to them. But if you're not writing magazine articles, what can you do? Do these people hold events? Can you get on their radar? Is there something that you can give?
Mm-hmm.
If you can, then there's that reciprocity factor. There's that energetic exchange. There are some people that love to give endorsements. So for example, Brian Tracy, a couple of years ago, I don't know if that's still true, he couldn't wait to provide endorsements, because for every endorser, they're getting their name and their most recent book on the back of your book for their own advertising.
Yep.
I once saw Mark Victor Hansen at an event where he was speaking, where he wrote an endorsement on somebody's hand without seeing one word. So there are people that just want to get their own names out on books. Also think about people in your own league, other peers who are coming out with books, or people who you're on their email list and you're getting their newsletters and they have new books out. All those people, they want advertising for their own books. Those are good markets to go after, and you're already on their list. So that's about endorsements.
Okay.
And then about getting a forward written. Typically, I shouldn't say typically, right now I'll just share that my company is actually writing forwards where we have like an author who has a famous person who said, yes, I'll write a forward. We're actually writing the forward for them, and then the person approves it. So, we're ghostwriting it. So that's kind of like a common practice now. To get somebody to actually write a forward, they have to be so passionate about you or your book. And that's just really the truth of it.
Right. And that's what we run into a lot when people ask that question is, do I give it to them already written? Are they, that's a big ask to ask them to sit down and do it. And by the way, Brian Tracy has actually written a lot of forwards for people I know as well.
Okay. May I say one more thing about this?
Absolutely.
Be careful about long forwards, prefaces, and introductions. You want to get to the meat of your book as quickly as possible. A forward is not always necessary.
Okay.
And keep the introduction really on the short side, and don't let it be about me, I. Make it about you, about them, about your reader, and how this book is absolutely going to benefit them, and grab them by the short hairs. And I mean it immediately. In that first sentence, in that first paragraph, that reader has to be hooked. And yeah. I want to give you a good test. This is a good test that you can do in a group. Okay. I was speaking for a very large writers organization recently. And right after I spoke, the event organizer had a bunch of anonymous first pages. He had asked people who were interested, to print out and give him their first pages. So it's anonymous, their names aren't on it. So he read the first line and he asked this large group of people, how many of you would keep reading this book based on this sentence? So, a large number of hands went up. Then he read the first paragraph. How many of you would keep reading the book? Then he read the next paragraph, and when he said, okay, a number of hands went down. Why? And so people gave feedback while the author anonymously in that room was listening and getting direct feedback. Wow. You've got to grab people. And if you can get actual feedback from a room full of people like that, how powerful is that? Is there a local writers group or someplace where you can try to get that kind of feedback? It's invaluable, but you've got to grab your reader quickly. Right. I was working on a book recently. It was like, a 20-page preface and then, a large introduction. I'm going, no, condense it. Get into your chapters, get into your meat as quickly as you can.
Yes. Now,
if you're vegan, get into your tofu. Whatever it is, just do it quickly.
Yes. And I'm
grab a reader.
a step further from what she just said. If you're in front of a room getting feedback, make sure it's not your friends and your relatives, because they will always say nice things. It's just
always.
You want frank, blunt, even if it hurts, feedback, because it's honest.
And I want to give you a way to ask for that feedback.
Yes.
People will be afraid. I remember being in a writer's group when I was first starting out, and there were 3 of us in our little group, and we were afraid to give each other feedback until we created a format. And so what we asked for are the strengths and weaknesses. So when you put everything in terms of strengths and weaknesses, that's really helpful. And I actually got another hint yesterday in a meeting with a social media gal who was also writing her own book. And she told me that take the word you out of that feedback. So you're addressing the writing itself, not you. You're not making the author or the writer wrong.
Right.
So just address, the actual writing itself in terms of strengths and weaknesses. And it's a really great way to get feedback.
Yes, there's that. It's kind of escaping me, but I love the way Adam Markel uses a feedback system about, this is what worked for me. This is what didn't work or, didn't resonate with me. I'm trying to remember exactly how I says it, but it makes it very impersonal. It's not like you're attacking. It's a really great feedback system to help people. This is what you could have done better. I don't know. I probably brought it up if I didn't have the exact wording, but he does it in such a great way that, you can take the feedback constructively.
It's funny that you mentioned just, Adam Markel out of the blue. He is the author of a book called Pivot. And I helped Adam get his 6-figure book deal in a bidding war between HarperCollins, McGraw-Hill, and Simon & Schuster. And I did it with 3 words that got him a top agent. And when I was pitching this book, the 3 words were, and I shouted them, I smell money. And that's how I pitched that particular book. And I shouted, I'm not going to shout it on the screen like I did.
Thank you.
And I actually inhaled like, I smell money. And the agent, her eyes are like popping out of her head. What do you got for me? What do you got for me, Randy? And it turned into that 6-figure book deal in a big bidding war.
That is so cool. I actually have Adam's book, and I probably could get that feedback loop out of it. Going to be a guest on our show in January, so I'm excited about that. A great speaking coach can really help a lot of you people out there who need to build a platform. So one of my other questions that people ask all the time is, what are the things that you must do to make your book stand out?
One is having a very, very unique topic. A second, I would say, is definitely have that title that just absolutely grabs. And if it's not a goosebump title, let's please talk about it until it is.
Yes.
And I would say the third thing is, write on a topic that a publisher's really interested in.
Uh-huh.
Like if your topic is so niche, it's possible that it can be sold, but, if you're writing to something that's trending, you probably have a much better chance. And I'll give you an example. Last year, I edited a book and sold it to a publisher, and the book is called Slave, A Human Trafficking Survivor Finds Life. And it was about a 4-year-old boy whose mother hands him over to a sex cult leader who takes him to Mexico. He grows up as a child slave until he escapes in his teens. He now has the Well Child Foundation in Oakland, just this beautiful, beautiful man. Well, is human trafficking trending?
Yes,
absolutely. So not only do I get, I edit the book, I get it sold to a publisher, but the publisher immediately gets it to 3 Hollywood major movie producers, and it's under consideration for film. This publisher also just did a book deal with Sophie Turner from Game of Thrones, and so that's just all very, very exciting.
By the way, what was up at our event we were at where you asked who in here is a Game of Thrones fan, and it was only me, like do not or even watch HBO? So what is it? What else do they need to do to absolute must that they have to do to make their book stand out?
I would say definitely have the book analyzed. That's one thing that, my company does. The first thing we do when anybody brings in a manuscript is that I send everybody an NDA. You want to know that your material is confidential, it's protected, it's yours, you own the copyright to it. Mm-hmm. So that's just, really, really key. The first is an NDA, and then we analyze. So we, meaning I have a team of editors who work for me, and the people who work for me, they've all worked for publishers, or they've edited many books that have sold to those big publishers, because I wanted people who really understood what publishers buy and what readers buy, not just what great content is. So I thought that's a key piece.
Mm-hmm.
And so we analyze, we use the comments bar in Word. And we're going to, pick out things like, are you using pet words or phrases? So for example, I had a book recently where the author kept saying thus. Nobody uses that thus and it's a pet word. I had another book where suddenly, and it just felt like there was so much angst and, drama in this book, suddenly. So, we just find what are the repetitive words. And then also, a lot of times people will repeat the same words in paragraphs or in sentences.
Mm-hmm.
Vary the language, please. But it can't sound stilted. And here's another thing, another thing to really look out for are weak words. Weak words are just very common verbs like have, had, was, are, got, get, went, go. Very, very common words. It's not that you can't use them, but vary the language without it being or sounding stilted. It really needs to sound like somebody speaks.
You know what? That one's a big one, and I even find myself doing it quite a bit. We've gotten very lazy with language, and I find myself doing that all the time. Before I let you go on, I just want to define something for the people listening. An NDA is a non-disclosure agreement, and we use them all the time with publishing. We use them, a lot of times I use them with people's business, new products as well. So just for those who didn't understand what she was talking about, that's what an NDA is.
You know what's funny about that? The reason I just started sending, in my mind, everybody's project is confidential. I'm never going to do anything with it except exactly what we're contracted to do, period. However, there's different target market demographics. So people find me on LinkedIn, people find me on Facebook. LinkedIn people are ready to go. They understand that I'm a professional, this is what I do, and I'm doing it for them to create their success. And so they're ready to go. People on Facebook consistently were asking me, how do I know you're not a scammer? Completely different demographics. So I figured send everybody an NDA so that, and a rate sheet so that, everything's up front. So getting back to our previous conversation, we start with an analysis. Then the book can go back to you to strengthen anything we're finding. Is there any place where you lost your reader or a potential publishing deal? We're going to point those things out so you can strengthen those areas. Or maybe there's a story that needs to be inserted here to give an example, just like, add an anecdote here. We're just going to provide, simple things that you can do to improve the quality of your writing or of that project. And then we can come back after that, edit. And so those are, just two of the steps that we do to get the content right.
Mm-hmm. That's really great.
Yeah.
Andy, where can we find you? And what exactly do you do for people? Can you list some of these services so that people know what they need you for? We know you analyze books. We know you pitch them. We know you edit, because a lot of these books are edited. What else do you provide?
So a consultation, what is the right book to write? I offer, like I said on the last podcast, and I'm happy to offer it here, I have a report on that, but I'll also speak to people about it as well, called, Write the Right Book. So, consultations about any aspect of getting a book published, that's one. Analysis, editing. For every nonfiction project, there must be a book proposal, which is a business plan. It's not a query letter.
Mm-hmm.
These are long documents, and I have a shortcut for people to do them simply. And so we'll talk about a book proposal. That's the key to getting that book sold. So that's either I'll write it, I'm a master of it, or I'll help guide a person through it depending on, which method they prefer. We also ghostwrite, and I have top ghostwriters, and we do very, very high-level books. And because they're confidential, I can't tell you, we've done this book for this famous person or this book or that, but you can just trust me that we have and we are. Because they're confidential. We're true ghosts. That means that when you see a book title and it has title of book by such and such with, the with person is the ghostwriter. We're not with people. We'd like to be thanked on your acknowledgments page as your editors, but you'll never know that we ghost wrote that book because it is your book.
And there you go, people. Now with the editing, you know who actually wrote the book.
And other times we're editing the book, so you don't know who actually wrote the book. And then I pitch. I go to New York, and I pitch all year long via email. And then at the giant publishing industry feeding frenzy in the United States is called Book Expo America. It happens in late May every year. And I pitch live, and like last year, 24 meetings in 2.5 days, where I'm verbally pitching and take a proprietary pitch sheet that I create for every single person that nobody else does, but it absolutely tips the sale in the favor of all my authors.
Mm-hmm.
And the project doesn't have to be ready. I have pitched ideas where not one word was written. I'm just taking my double-sided, glossy, graphically designed, gorgeous proprietary pitch sheet that I know a publisher needs or an agent needs in order to get a promise of consideration for when that project is ready.
Very
And
good.
then bedside reading, getting those books into the luxury hotels.
Cool.
So
Where do
yeah.
we find you? How can we connect with you?
Randy with a Y at author1stop.com. And the one is spelled out ONE. Or you can go to author1stop.com and just click on the contact link. So either
Very
way.
good. Very good. Thank you so much. This was a lot of great information, and thank you for making yourself available for 2 podcasts.
Yes. I love helping people be successful. And I say a book is more than words on a page. It's your dream. And I get to help you birth your dream. And that's what's really exciting to me.
Very cool. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.